New Masechet, everybody. Welcome aboard. Third is Napim. We got this. Fascinating Masechet. Masechet Horayot talks about what if Betin makes the wrong decision. Usually, we're discussing a case where they allow something that's hayav karet, like blood, or forbidden fat called halib. Mutar fats of an animal are called shuman, and people listen to them. The hayav usually a korban called par ha'alam davar. Now we're going to go into different details. Mishnah. Haru Betin la'avor حد يكون بصفة ما بترعى if Betin ruled and said that you're allowed to be over, you're allowed to transgress any Aviran the Torah, really, which is usually Chayav Karet. והלך היחיד ועשה שוגה על פיהם. And the guy went and did it by mistake because of them. בין שעשו ועשה עמהם, whether or not Betin did it with them, they ate a meal together. בין שעשו ועשה אחריהם, or they did it and then he copied them. Ben Shalo Asub Uvasa, whether or not they didn't do it at all and he copied them, Patur is for Patur from bringing a Korban Hatat because Mipnei Shetalab Betin, because he relied on Betin's decision. Horu Betin, the Betin gave a rule and said something is mutar, it wasn't supposed to be mutar. Ve'yada'a had mehen jeta'u, and one of the people from Betin, we'll see exactly who that is, realized they made a mistake. Or if he wasn't one of the Betin rulers themselves, Tamid Shvehura Ula or he was a student that's eligible to give over halacha or and eligible to become a judge. V'halach v'asa bihen, and he said, you know what? They said it's mutar. I'm gonna jump on it, my free chance to do it. Ben sha'asu v'asa mehem, ben sha'asu v'asa haran, whether or not they did it with him or after him. Ben shalo asu v'asa, whether they didn't do it at all, and he did it regardless. How does it hayav v'chayav kuban hatat? Why? Because he didn't rely on the court. He knew it was asur. Besides the fact that he should have spoken up, but the fact that he just took it as a green light to do whatever he wanted, that's not the point over here. But he made a mistake does not give you the green light if you know it's still asur. Exactly, this is the rule. Hatole be'asmo hayav. Someone relies on his own halacha and does the avera, he's chayav kuban hatat. V'atolel bedin patur, but he relied on bedin. Honestly, then he's patur from a korban hatat because he didn't have a mistaken sin. He sinned because of bedin. Amar Shmuel says, "Le'olam en betin hayavin. Betin is never chayav for bringing the korban of a par hadam davar. Ad shemru lahem mutarim atem, unless he told people you are mutar. All right, so you shouldn't walk into Betin's discussions, hear them saying something mutar, and think that's a halacha. No, they have to specifically tell you it's mutar. Rav Zimi Mad Ramar, Rav Zimi adds on it, he says no. Ad shemru lahem mutarim atem la'asor. They have to be telling people you're allowed to do it. My time why? Because if you don't say you're allowed to do it, that's not a full permission granted type of situation. It could be, again, they were just talking in halacha and you gleaned the wrong words. I'll bring you a proof. I'll bring proof from Mishnah Hazar Le'iro. In the case of a Zakin Mamre, in Masechet Sanhedrin, of a guy decides a certain halacha, they bring him to Bedin in Yerushalayim, they tell him you're wrong. So the halacha is if he goes back to his city, this Tamil Hacham goes back to his city after Badin told him is wrong, and he tells people to do like what he originally said, he's Hayab Mita. So what happens? Hazar Liro, if he goes back to his city and all he does is Shana B'limed K'derech Shneimeh, he just teaches the way that he used to teach his thought process. Patur you're not chayav. Horala asur, once you tell him to do it, chayav he's chayav. So therefore, we see a proof for Abdimi that you're the main gist is telling people to do something. Rabbi Abba, another proof. Afanan Tinim of another proof Mishnah. Horula bedin naseh ba'alacha v'kilkila. If a woman whose husband went missing and she a single witness testifies that he died. So then Betty says, you know what, you could remarry. And then instead of remarrying, she fooled around with another man without being married. If he comes back alive, if he shows up alive. Why? Bedin allowed her to marry. They didn't tell her to just be with another man without getting married. And therefore, if she did that, then since she never got permission from Bedin to do that, she's chayav. Chayavet. Maravin another proof. Avnaz name another proof. Mar Mishnah Horayot. Horu Bedin Yavar called the Torah. We see that Bedin is chayav only if Bedin ruled to be all there on the mitzvot to do it and not just say halacha. Tulomidi, therefore, we have no further things to be said. We have proof according to Rav Dimi. Now we're going to go through kind of the same conversation, but in a different format, different version of how things went down. Ikad Amri, different version. Amar Shmuel, Shmuel says, and Bedin Hayavin, Bedin is not Hayav for a Qurban. Ad Shimur Lehem Mutarim Natan Asut, he says you are Hayav to do it. You're mutar to do it, rather. Rav Dimi Adar Amar, Rav Dimi says, Afilu Mutarim Atem Nighmera Hora'ah. Even if he just says you're permitted, that's considered permission granted. Marshal Marbella, 1 second. Now, all the proof that we brought for Rav Dimi is now going to be a question against Rav Dimi. First question, we see over there that you have to, in order to be considered a ruling being given over, he has to tell him to do it. And you're saying you don't have to tell him to do it, you said it's mutar. Question number one. Second question, question from the lady. Again, we see that Bedin didn't tell her to do it, and therefore that's why she's chayav in that case of being with the other man. Third question, we see again from a Mishnah that Bedin has to specifically tell you to do it. Three questions from Radini, and then we say the opposite way. We have no further thing to be said. This is all bomb questions against Rav Dimi. Next part of Mishnah. If an individual went and acted by mistake because of what they said, the Gemara doesn't want the Lashon. Why did the Mishnah have to say they just listened to what Bedin said? Why do you have to say why do you say they did it by mistake? We know it's a mistake. That's why he's listening to them. Gemara says the reason is what does it mean by mistake? Teaches you. Let's say Bedin tells you, you know what? Yeah, this piece of asur fats, halib, is mutar. What happens? This guy says, oh, it's mutar? Okay, great. He ends up setting aside a piece of halib to eat, and he accidentally eats mutar fat. No, he ends up setting aside two pieces of fats to eat, the mutar fat and the asur fat. Now, he wanted to eat the asur fat because Bedin told him it's mutar. He accidentally ate the mutar one. Opposite, again, second mistake, my apologies. He went to go eat the mutar fat, and he accidentally ate the asur fat. Now, he was going to eat it regardless because Bedin told him it was mutar. Patur, even in that case, is patur. Even though it had nothing to do with Bedin's mistake, because Bedin's mistake had nothing to do with that because he accidentally ate it. Therefore, what do we see? That case teaches you shogeg is even in that type of mistake, you're patur. And al piyam, what does it mean that if he did it according to the word? Al piyam mash means if he did it on purpose, he's also patur. Vigdar, the version of Rabba says shogeg al piyam hu patur only if he did it by mistake. Through Bedin, if you listen to them as patur. Avan halif lo halif b'shmon ba'achol. But that second case, if he accidentally ate the asur meat, then hayav is hayav because that nothing to do with Bedin. Okay, milta the pshita lo de Rabba. Now the same halacha that Rabba was so pashut for him. Rabbi Ahmad was not sure about it. The Rabbi Ahmad had a question. Bedin said that halib is mutar, then halif lo b'shuman b'achla. Then he accidentally ate halib instead of mutar fat that he meant to eat. Ma huwa tzalacha. Bring proof. Basically, Rabbi was saying what we just proved before. Why we need the word shogeg to teach? It must be lav. It must be teaching you that if you ate it by mistake, then you're batur. I mean, Muhammad says no, I don't like that. Maybe only if he ate it by mistake, if you listen to them. Maybe you'll be chayav if he ate it on purpose. If he ate it accidentally. Ikdam a different version how it went down. Marabara says someone ate by mistake. Maybe Mishnah is telling you only if you ate it by mistake. But if you ate it inadvertently by confusing the two pieces of meat, maybe it'd be chayav. The Gemara said no. The Gemara said maybe that's not proof. Maybe the Mishnah is referring to his patur whether or not he ate it by mistake or whether he ate it through listening to them. Betlukta, we have a machloka this as well. Horubadin shahalib mutar. If Bedin says that halib is mutar, mehalef lo halib b'shuman b'achlo, and someone confused the pieces of fats. Rav amar patur. Rav says patur. Rabbi Yochanan amar chayav. Rabbi Yochanan says chayav because he didn't follow Bedin. Material question. Me'am haaretz ba'asotat. The Torah says if your guy will make a mistake and make an avirah from the people of the land. Sounds like what's teaching you? Prat lo excludes someone who's rebellious, who doesn't usually listen to divrei hachamim. So the guy can't say, "Oh, I can eat this now." Okay, fine. He doesn't eat it regardless. Therefore, he's excluded. He would be a hayat. Rabbi Shimon Yosef, Rabbi Shimon. Eno tzarich. You don't need to teach me that because why? How do I pasuk says elsewhere? Asher lo te'asena bishchaga v'ashem o hoda. He's not to be done with by mistake or and become guilty. Meaning that what? It had to be something that was known to him, meaning Hashem mida'ato maybe korban hasharato, lo shem mida'ato, inu v'korban. When is this guy patur for listening to Betin? Is if he had known that it was truly asur, he would have stopped, which excludes what we just said, the previous case. If the guy would have known he would have sinned anyhow, then he's not patur from bringing a korban. So he doesn't get that free pass. The mean, if you want to bring a proof, according to Yochanan says that you're chayav bring a korban if you ate the meat, the fat by mistake. Yani you switched it by mistake. Halo shab midato. But that guy wouldn't stop because technically he would think it's mutar. No. So why would be chayav? Mar says no. Mar says kasavar b'yochanan kevan dechim mitadel lehu lechu bedin hadarbehu b'unami hadarbe shab midato krim be v'chayav. So no, since technically if Betin would have become aware, they would retract, and therefore he would also retract and not eat it and stop himself from eating it. Therefore, that's considered like he ate it in against what he would have had, and therefore he'd be chayav a korban hatat if it got switched. Mar says, "Modeh Rav she'enu mashlim l'Rav Sibor." This person, right? So now there's a special halacha that they didn't bring the korban if majority of Bnei Israel sin. What if it's 50-50 exactly? And this guy is the tiebreaker. This guy who accidentally switched the pieces of fats. He meant to eat the mutar one. He ate the asur one by accident. He does not tilt the scale to make it 51% of Bnei Israel sinning to make Betin Chayav a korban. My time why? Amar Kala Pasuk says b'shkaga, they make a mistake. Teaches you what actually kulam b'shkaga achat, they have to all be part of the same mistake. Okay. Mishnah said, Ben she'asu ve'asai mehem, whether or not Bedin did it with them or not. The Gemara says, Lema lema did it kohanim. I have to teach you all these cases. Oh, Bedin did it with him. He did it after Bedin did it, or Bedin didn't do it at all. Bishlam Marisha makes sense. The first case of the Mishnah, where the guy was patur from the korban hatat, lozu asu kutanim, because teaching you three separate halachot in the format of not only that case you're patur, but even the second case you're patur. Not only that, second case you're also patur in the third case. Ela Seif about the second case, which teaches you the Lehiyuva, where the guy is Hayav, Itpecham Bibarle. You should have taught the cases in reverse. Yani, teach me the first Hidush, the bigger Hidush first. Right? So if teach me the first Hidush where it should be in the reverse, which means that the first case should have been he did it by himself. The second case, what he did it after them. And even if he did it together with them, he's Hayav. So Gemara says, "Zu be'en tzarich lamar zu k'tani." It's true. That's one way of looking at it, but we're doing it in a different format known as not only this, but even that. So not only in the case where he ate with them, but even in the case where he did it after them, or even in the case he did it without them completely. Okay. Next part. The court made a halacha, and they realized that one of the rabbis realized there was a mistake, and he still did his chayav. Why need two cases? Why need either the judge or the student? Mar says, Amarava, in both cases. Satatami, you would have thought that what? Maybe you might think only your chayav if the guy is a judge and knowledgeable. Maybe if he's only knowledgeable but not able to be a judge, he'd be patur. Rabbi says, Lahora'ah. 1 second. The Mishnah said that you're eligible to ruling. Gamir v'sever meshma. Sounds like he has to be knowledgeable and able to judge. How can you be one? Gemara says no. Amale, Anna Hachi come in and I meant to say as follows. If you only mention from the first case of a judge, Havamina, Hanimili Gamir v'sever, that only applies if the guy is able to judge and knowledgeable. Ava Gamir v'sever lo sever lo. Maybe if he's knowledgeable and not able to be judged, maybe he should be patur. Tanar ule hara. Therefore, the Mishnah said he's able to be worthy of ruling. The Mishnah, since seemingly it's repetitive, therefore it teaches us I feel gamir v'lo savir. Therefore, either one chayav, a student who is knowledgeable but can't judge, or able to judge but not totally knowledgeable, even those cases are chayav. Next part of Mishnah, ra'ui hara, able to rule. What type of person is able to rule? These type of rabbis were eligible to be to teach. Mark says, okay, if that's the case, well, 1 second. If it's tremendous to me that these two rabbis, that's not someone making a mistake. That's someone doing it on purpose. You're not able to bring a korban if you do it on purpose. According to what you just said, that he'd be considered a chayav if he considered doing it on purpose. How the Tanya says, that is considered that they do one avera. Yahid ha'osim pi'atzmo hayav. If a guy does his own reason why, if a guy decides that he's able to eat this and it's obviously asur, he's hayav. But badin patur. But if he lies dan badin, he's patur. Case that what's the case? Hurubatin shehalib mutar. If it didn't say that halib is mutar, v'nodal le'ahad mehen sheta'u, and it became known that they made a mistake. Or tamid yeshev l'fneihem v'ra'u l'hara'ah, or if a student was there that's eligible to rule. Kegon Shimon ben Azai, like a big Tanit Chacham like Shimon ben Azai. Yachol patur ma'edin bepatur. Remember the pasuk says ba'asta achat when doing one avira. Yahid ha'oseh pi'atzmo hayav teaches you that if a guy if he does it by himself is chayav, but if he listens to badin patur. So we see a case again that the Berta says that a guy like Shimon ben Azai, he um is patur. But wouldn't that be a case of a guy doing on purpose? Would be the case like that. So let's say the guy knows that Dean made a mistake. And therefore, meaning he didn't just say, "Oh, I must be wrong," and therefore let me listen to the Hamim. No, he knows they're wrong. And what would be the case that he make that he's chayav is he says, I know they're wrong, but I'm going to listen to them because I'm supposed to listen to hachamim. Kigon diadada asur v'katad mitzvot l'shmon hachamim. He says, oh, I have to listen to hachamim. They did not mean to tell mitzvot l'shmon hachamim. Therefore, I should listen to them. In that case, you're chayav because that's considered deliberate. Okay, exactly. This is the general rule. The Mishnah says that if someone listens to himself, he's chayav, but it doesn't bedin your patur. The Gemara says, what's that teaching you? What's the Hidush teaching you? Every time you say, oh, this is the rule, that's excluding. As including or excluding, the Gemara says, La tuyed b'ma'id b'hora'ah is coming to include someone who rebels against Hachamim in general, that if he says, oh, it's mutar, because he's rebelling against what Bedin usually says, in that case, it's hayab. If someone says that he lies in Bedin, it's including a case of Bedin rule to say something is mutar, and then they made a mistake, they retracted. If the guy did not know that Bedin retracted, he's still patur. The Gemara says, "Haba 1 second." The next Mishnah says that exactly. That if Bedin retracts and someone doesn't realize they retracted and still does it, he is hayab. He's patur rather. The Gemara says it's true. Tani b'hadim mefresh. Our Mishnah teaches the halacha, and then later on we go into the details. We'll stop here.